And it's my very great pleasure to hand you over to Ingrid Martin.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Kevin and Lindley and Amuse, for hosting all of these PDs. It's such a great resource and opportunity for all of us. It's great to see a whole lot of familiar faces and actually see faces. It's really cool, and some familiar names. If you do feel comfortable putting your camera on, you know, we're on the home stretch of hopefully having to look at too many faces only on Zoom, but it's nice to see the faces nonetheless. My name's Ingrid Martin, and I'm coming to you from Surrey Hills on the land of the Wurundjeri people, and I'd like to pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. So we're here today to talk about repertoire, and thanks so much if you signed up for this last term, and then I know we got booted because I was unwell, so thanks for coming back if that was one for you. I'd like to start by just getting everyone to type in the chat what year levels you teach and what kind of ensembles you teach, just so we can get a handle on what kind of groups we're talking about today. Great. 7 to 10 classroom, year 7 concert band, year 3 to 12 beginner concert band, jazz band, piano ensemble, year 8 classroom beginner concert band, year 7 to 12 instrumental and voice, 7 to 12 concert band, stage band, beginner band, jazz, clarinet quartets, stage band, choirs. Great, we've got everything. Rock band, percussion ensemble, guitar ensemble. Oh, the only thing we're missing is strings. Don't have any stringers here yet. I'm sure they'll be here, and if you're a closet stringer, feel free to, own up to that. Looks like lots of concert band and jazz band in the house, and a few choirs. Oh, you're starting a string ensemble. That's awesome, Luke. Hi, Luke, by the way. Nice to see you. It's been a long time. Yeah, so this is great just, I think, to know where everybody's at, because there's lots of collective resource in the room, and we are going to be going into some breakout rooms a little bit later on to sort of draw on some of that collective expertise and get some different ideas from each other. Bear with me while I get our little presentation up. Give me a thumbs up that you can see that okay. Thank you, Tracy. Fantastic. So our plan for this session together is we want to start, and we're going to spend quite a big chunk of our time just talking about our needs now. I've done a lot of presentations about repertoire in my time, and the time has never been like it is right now. Even when I was doing presentations at the start of this year about, our students have lost, 3/4 of last year, where do we go? How do we start? Now we're in that place, but 10x amplified in terms of what can our ensembles do and what is realistic for them. So we're going to spend quite a lot of time at the beginning just reflecting on where you are at personally, where your ensemble is at, and using that as the lens through which we make these decisions about repertoire, and that we look at these principles around choosing repertoire that's going to help us feel good and also help our students feel good, which is obviously one of the things we all want right now. So we're going to start with some questions, and I'd like you to put the answers to these 2 questions in the chat with actually, we'll just go with the first question, even though you're going to see both of them. Whoops. So the first question, put your answer in the chat. How do you feel about going back to ensemble, and why? And I know we've got lots of band and jazz band people here, so let's think forward to when we can actually play our instruments or sing. I don't even know what the next like 4 to 6 weeks are going to look like. But let's imagine that you're in a rehearsal with everyone playing their instruments. How are you feeling about that and why? Pop it in the chat. Nervous, bit excited. Yep. Feel good, not sure what it will sound like. Yeah, Nick, great point about the differentiation being spread even more now between those that have excelled and the ones that have just kind of dropped out. Laura, great observation there about lunchtime rehearsals. George, great observation about fatigue of students only kind of playing a little bit of the time before. Yep, don't know how it will sound. Concerned and looking forward to it. Okay, and yep, Joanne, your student's not required to do ensemble during online. I know there's lots of people that have been in that situation. Super pumped, missed the noise, Melissa. Love that. Excellent. For our next question, we're going to actually write it somewhere else. And I'm just going to show you how to get there. This is an amazing resource that I've been using, or online platform called Padlet. And Padlet helps you share and contribute to documents in a more interesting way than, say, Google Docs. So I put a link in the chat, and I'm going to change my share so you can see where we are. So this is Padlet, and I want you to, oops, there we go. Answer the second question in this first column. So, have your priorities shifted and evolved during online learning? How? And even if you haven't been doing ensemble, maybe you can think more broadly about your instrumental or your classroom teaching and how your priorities have shifted. And if you just do a plus, a dialogue will come up and you can write your name and then your answer. So take a couple of minutes to think about how your priorities have shifted and evolved during online learning, and then you just click publish and there it is. There's some great comments going up. keep them coming. Sure, Laura, go ahead. If you can't get into the Padlet, just pop them in the chat.
Cool, thanks. I also can't like see what everyone else is writing either. It just, I don't know, it won't open.
I'll just put the link there again. If you've just joined us, there's a link in the chat, and everyone is answering the first question on that page. Cool. So we've got a great variety of comments here about playing more pieces to keep students engaged, getting students to keep making improvements, keeping them engaged by making it simple and achievable, learning skills and making sure that they're transferable, focus isn't on getting songs concert ready, but just getting students re-engaged, keeping students and staff engaged. That's the word, one of the words that keeps popping up in all of those comments so far. And if you're still writing, please keep writing. So if we're thinking about how our priorities have shifted, the next questions for us are, what do our students now need from Ensemble? Sorry, trying to do two things at once here. Is this different from in the past, and why? You might have already answered this, but can you go back into the Padlet now and answer those two questions? What do your students need right now from Ensemble, and is it different from in the past? Why? And for those couple of people who've just joined us, we're answering these questions in a thing called Padlet, and I've just put the link in the chat again, so it should appear for you if you just click on that link. And we're answering the questions in the second column. Connection seems to be a theme. And by the way, if you see other people's comments and you're like, yeah, I like that, feel free to click the little love heart and give some love to your colleagues. And if you've written your comment for that second column, you can now jump into that third column of thinking about these first two things about, and the first question we answered in the chat of how do we feel? How have our priorities changed? So what do we need? What do the students need? How's this going to impact how we teach our ensembles in person. And again, for those of you who've just joined us, we're projecting into a time when we can play our instruments, even though that's not the case right now. Keep these awesome contributions coming, everybody. Alrighty. If you haven't quite finished, please keep typing away. And hopefully you have had an opportunity to have a look at some other people's comments. Again, some of the themes that are coming through are engaging and well-being. So connecting with the students as people, and maybe shifting our focus from, say, performances has been mentioned, but just reconnecting and helping the students remember what it's like to play with each other again. And love Kit's idea of getting some feedback from the students about what are the things that have helped them engage in their other classes and other subjects and other things at school that maybe we could bring in to the ensemble room when we get to rehearse. Yeah, and Nick's put in a great comment about starting with basic material, so that people can enjoy the music from the get-go. For our next two questions, we're going to go into some breakout rooms, and we're going to have 10 minutes. So that's 5 minutes each. It's going to be in groups of 2 or maybe 3. And in your breakout room, you're going to be answering the next 2 questions, but instead of you writing in the Padlet, you're going to write what the other person says. So let's say I get in a breakout room with Lisa, and I'm going to ask Lisa, hey Lisa, what are your top 3 priorities for your ensembles returning? And Lisa will tell me, and I'm going to write Lisa's answers down in the Padlet. And then I'll say, hey, Lisa, how will this influence how you choose your repertoire? And then I'll write down what Lisa says. So it's just an opportunity for us to connect with each other, talk to another human, and also for us to really listen to what the other person's saying without worrying too much about what we're going to say, which is so easy for us to do. It's like, I've got to think about what I'm saying next, and we don't really kind of tune into the other person. So let's see if I can jump everyone into these breakout rooms. Make sure that you introduce yourself at the beginning. So I'll have a minute for everyone to kind of introduce themselves, and then it'll be 4 minutes per person, and I'll put a little message when it's time to switch over. Oh, no worries. Thanks, Lindley. Oh, I can't see the breakout rooms thing, even though I'm now the host, Kevin. So maybe it's not enabled for this meeting.
If you give me a minute, I can perhaps go back and change that. I think. Just let me.
Sure, have a go.
Give me a second.
While Kevin is being the tech guru, you can be thinking about your top 3 priorities. Maybe you could jot them down on a piece of paper. This will save you trying to think of it while you're talking to the other person or while they're talking to you.
I can't do it because you're the host.
Oh, let me send that back to you. Try again.
Okay. Give me a second. Ingrid, I don't seem to be having any luck with this. I'm really sorry.
That is fine. We will roll with the punches, just like we always do in a rehearsal. No problem at all. We all know how to do this as teachers. So no worries. Everyone's just already taken their notes. So can we put down in the Padlet then, what are your top 3 priorities for your ensemble returning? And how will this influence how you choose the repertoire? once you've written yours, feel free to scroll through and steal anything from anybody else, because there's lots of cool stuff in here. You're like, oh, I didn't think of that. That was the reason why we were going to go in breakout rooms, was so that you could, you know, talk to someone and go, oh, yeah, I didn't think of that. That's really good. Like there's some really good ideas in here about some kind of informal performance opportunities, if that's important to you. Also, like Tracy's idea of organizing breakfast or lunch. It's really cool. Now, you might be thinking that, you know, some of these questions are pretty close together, and maybe you feel like you're kind of saying the same answers over and over again with maybe a slightly different tweak. But the reason for kind of pushing on about this is getting us beyond the superficial of just off the top of your head, oh yeah, I just want to go back to ensemble, and like, yeah, I want the kids to connect. But I think it's important for us to really reflect on what we have done in online learning, whether that's nothing because you haven't been able to, or whether that's stuff with the handful of kids that have turned up and never turned their cameras on, or whether that's like everyone has been there. Like, good for you if that's what's happened. And, you know, and you've managed to get through heaps of, you know, repertoire and, I don't know, recording stuff. Like, there's such a spectrum. And I think it's important to reflect on what it is that you've done and what has been the breadth of experience of the students in your ensemble. And that's been mentioned a lot, because normally we have a pretty wide spread of what's going on in our ensembles and different students' abilities and the way that they respond in rehearsals or in the classroom. And now that has only gotten wider, because as was mentioned before, we've had those students that have, some of them have thrived in online learning and some of them have completely opted out. And so I think all this stuff that everyone's talking about of connection and creating culture and just making sure that we focus on the people first is going to go a really long way to helping make everyone feel safe and everyone feel included and like they can have a valuable experience. One comment that Luke put just on that last column was about having a wide variety of repertoire. And we're going to kind of dive into that in quite a lot of detail in a minute. But I think as a general concept, if you kind of take anything away from today, it would be have a wide range of stuff, whether that's melodies that you learnt in your lockdown rehearsals and you're going to have like a pep band thing that sounds awesome, or you know, pieces that you've been working on and the kids have been preparing their individual parts, or whether that's new stuff, but particularly a wide variety of difficulty. Because I'm sure the same thing happened to you at the beginning of this year. When I first went into that first band rehearsal in February, my band would normally be playing, I don't know, like grade 2.5, grade 2 maybe. They're like year 8s and 9s, mostly sort of third year of playing. And I think I had a 2.5, but I had lots of 2, lots of 1.5, lots of 1, like first piece you would ever play in band. And I just was really upfront with them about, no one knows what this is going to sound like. No one knows what anybody remembers. So let's just try this out. You might get, you know, and to be really clear with those students, again, because we've got that breadth, when you put that easier music in front of them, there's going to be those advanced students going, this is too easy. And to give them a reason why and an explanation why that music is there, of we're trying to work out where the sweet spot is. And we might have to go a bit easier than the sweet spot and a bit higher than the sweet spot to work that out, because that's going to help those students feel better about the experience. The ones that are more advanced and maybe have thrived go, oh, okay, yep, okay, I can see why we're doing that easier stuff, but I know we'll do a bit of other stuff. And then those ones that have maybe really struggled or not done any playing or have never really had a band rehearsal, we've all got those students that are now at the end of year 8 and have maybe had, I don't know, that many rehearsals ever. I've definitely got kids like that, maybe that many rehearsals. That they also need to not feel like they drown on that first rehearsal, and to acknowledge, oh yeah, we've got people like that, and that's cool. That's what these easier pieces are for. And then for them to know, look, there is going to be stuff that might be more complicated than what you can handle, and that's okay. We're just trying to work out where everybody is at. And I think, you know, everyone, all of us have had the experience over the last 2 years of realizing that you can't please everybody. And for us to be upfront with them about that. There's going to be pieces in here. Some of you are going to think are too hard. Some of you are going to think are too easy. That's cool. We want there to be something for everyone. It's like a smorgasbord. And then after you've tried all of those dishes, then you'll decide what you're going to go back for seconds on. Like I think I had at the start of the year probably 10 pieces in the folders, and there was 3 or 4 that they got played once and it was like never again. And that was fine. And the kids were like, fine. They didn't remember or miss them or notice. They just, and I can't remember who it was that said, I think it was George, they just want to play together. And that was a great comment from George about, we've got to do more playing and less talking. And that's going to happen with the easier music. So that's the other carrot that we can give to those more advanced students of, if we play music that looks harder to you or looks like it's more at your level, it's actually going to be crap because we're going to get 4 bars and then we will have lost people. We have to stop and start again. So saying to them that goal is we want to be able to play some stuff through and just not have to stop. And that's going to be more fun. Let's keep trucking away on my little screen here. Hang on, folks. All right, we've talked about that. So the next thing we're going to write in our Padlet, and this can be just brief, brain dump, whatever comes to your mind. What can your ensemble do now? What can you guarantee that like every person in your ensemble can do right now? And it might be very little. Like there might be, they can all sit in a room. I don't know. But just give us a brain dump of like whatever comes to mind. And then the next column, which is going to be much longer, is what have they missed? So now we know where we're starting from. all the classics. Don't know how to follow a conductor. Don't know how to listen. Don't know how to not talk all the way through a rehearsal. Yeah, I'll see all those nods. Yep, yep. So I think the other thing is just so much life has happened since February this year, but thinking back to what those first rehearsals are going to be like, it probably won't be quite as bad as that, I don't think, because the gap hasn't actually been as long. And I think probably most people, unless it's like, say, a classroom class that switched over in the middle of the year, most people have probably got the same students that you had when we started this lockdown. So all these great comments about going back to earlier repertoire are awesome. And I can tell you that I honestly didn't even think about that. I didn't even think, oh yeah, they've got repertoire that they did play. Just feels so many thousand years away to July or whenever it was, June. So the principles that we're going to talk about next may not apply for what's going to happen for the rest of this term, because as lots of people have alluded to, I mean, we don't know if we can play, if we're going to play at all. But also if we do, I think going back to what they know is really, really a good idea. It might seem a little bit boring at first for them, but it'll also give them that quick hit of it feeling really good, and they go, oh yeah, that's right, this is how that goes, this is how we do it. Even I think it was Nick saying like they've only performed one song together, of getting them to remember what that was like and what they did. Oh, let's see if we can, relive that thing again. To just build on those past moments of success, and also build on the online skills and learning, because if they've felt like they were already a bit successful doing that online, like, let's bring that into the real world. The one thing we want is for them to experience success, as much success as possible, as quickly as possible. And also realize that there's only so much of that we can control. And that's what's going to make us feel better about the whole thing. Just like, hopefully we all learned during lockdown that someone having their camera off doesn't mean you're a bad teacher or a bad person, because probably none of us would be here if that was the case. After how many 1,000 weeks we've been doing this now. All right, so let's get down to some nitty-gritty of some principles that you can apply when you're thinking about new repertoire, particularly repertoire for, say, next year, when, fingers crossed, we're all playing with instruments again. So again, even though now it's so hard to plan anything in the future, but you probably want to start by thinking about where are they now, which is going to be, again, so much lower than where a normal ensemble would be pre-COVID. Like maybe you've got the year, I guess if you've got beginners, they're probably also going to start from the same point at the start of next year. But anything else, they're at least a year, if not 2 years behind in terms of their ability level, and therefore in terms of the level of music that they're going to be playing. So getting really clear, like we've started to do, about where they are now and where we want them to be by the end of next year. And to be really honest and realistic about that. So I'll just use my band as an example. They're the sort of third band in the school out of 4. They're mostly year 8s and 9s with a couple of year 10s. And the year 8s that are there are probably because they started their instrument in primary school before they came to the school. So most kids have got at least 3 years of playing under their belt normally. And so that's why we're playing that sort of grade 2, 2.5 music. But now, like at the start of next year, I'm probably going to be playing music that is at the low end of what the band below me plays, or even at what the beginners would normally play at the end of their first year of playing, because that's the level of experience those kids are going to have. next year's 8s and 9s have basically had no band. So they're almost complete beginners, but they do have the progress that they've made in their lessons. So in that sense, they might be actually ahead. As we know, some of our kids are ahead, but then also there's going to be, they can't do any of that ensemble stuff that we just answered in that last question. So when I think about where I want them to be at the end of next year, all things going well, maybe they'll be the same as the end of the junior band. Maybe. That's like if everything goes to plan and, they like learn all the stuff and they can do band good, right? So we're just on a completely different scale with everything that we're doing. And we just have to be real about that. I'm not going to try and get them starting here and ending up here by the end of next year, because that's going to be horrible for me and horrible for them, because we're just going to be pushing. It's going to be really unsatisfying. So once we do that sort of where we start and where we want to be, then we can kind of map backwards and think about how we're going to build the skills. So starting with what are the skills, and then we can use that as our checklist for looking at a piece of music. Going, okay, I know that they need to be able to play crotchets and minims together in 4/4. Then it's really easy for you to open up a piece on Sheet Music Plus or JW Pepper, or go to Find Music or wherever you go, and go yes or no. Very, very easy. Whereas if you don't know what are those skills, where are they at and where they're going, then you just kind of like, oh yeah, that kind of looks good. And you might get that piece into the ensemble and realize it's way too hard or it's way too easy. So I've got a little tool that's really easy to use, and I will give you access, show you how to access it at the end. So this is just a little template that I made up, and some of you might have seen this before, where you can, and it's editable, so you'll get like an Excel version of, here's all the different skills that we do: rhythm, tone, technique, keys, concepts, theory, vocab, dynamics, articulation, phrasing, independence, internal pulse, intonation, balance and blend, student-teacher communication, student-teacher feedback, attentional control, that's going to be a big one when we come back, rehearsal etiquette, concert etiquette, performance presentation skills, attitude, perseverance, confidence, performing under pressure, I think it was George maybe mentioned that before, growth mindset. So you can just do a bit of a brain dump, and this might be one to do, say, over the summer holidays, of just jotting down your thoughts about where they're at. Once you've been back a few weeks, even if we can't play, you'll have a better sense of where they're at. And then some vague thoughts about where you might want them to be at the end of next year. Then, once you've done that, if you keep going down, you can get more specific about what's that going to look like over 4 terms or 3 terms or whatever it is for you. So it might be, well, at the end of the year, now they can play crotchets and that's about it. And at the end of the year, I'd love them to be able to play crotchets and quavers and minims in 4/4 and 3/4, for example. So then I can go, okay, in term 1, we're going to have a piece that maybe has a couple of quavers, but not much. Term 2 is going to have more quavers in 4/4 and maybe introducing it in 3/4. Then term 3 is going to be more complicated, more quavers in different parts of the bar. And then term 4 is going to be consolidating, doing those quavers in different things. That was just an example off the top of my head, but you all know what I'm talking about. You can work this out for your group of just chunking out that scaffolding and the sequencing of what needs to happen. And then once you've sort of got a bit of a grid of all these different skills, again, you're going to have an even more detailed place to start from when you look at a new piece of music, because you can go, in term 1, I need a set of however many pieces it is, 3 pieces, 2 pieces, 4 pieces. If you're going to, maybe do a performance, heaven forbid, that, okay, I've got my 4 pieces and I know that I want them to cover these particular things. And then you can just tick them off and go, okay, well, the new Anzacs is going to teach them this quaver thing, and then they're going to play in concert, I can't remember what key that piece is in, concert F, and they're going to learn the word writ, and and then you can see, oh, okay, so the next piece is going to have to teach them how to play pianissimo, because I know that they haven't seen pianissimo before. So I need to find a piece that teaches pianissimo. Given that they're learning writ here, it'd be really cool if there was pieces later in the year that also had a writ so that they could apply that learning again. I can't remember what awesome person talked about transferable skills right at the beginning. But this is just helping plan out and using the repertoire as our curriculum. So in order to do and fill out these things in a really meaningful way, the other thing that we need to know is if, fingers crossed, we have any performances that we have to do, because that's going to determine how much repertoire we need and when we need it, and when those sort of the outcomes are going to have to happen. So let me switcheroo to another thing that you'll get to see. Where is the right one? This one. Here we go. So again, I've done so many PDs about repertoire, and I've got so many of these that have just been like crossed out from the last 2 years, but we can hope, right? So let's zoom in a little bit. So you can just write your ensemble U 2022, you can cross out 2020 and 2021. And just for you to be looking at your school calendar and looking at how many rehearsals I have and factoring in all those things that usually come and bite us in the butt, like public holidays or camps or curriculum days. And you're like, oh, I thought I had 10 rehearsals, but I got 6. Better to know that sooner rather than later, before you pick the music. So even just that is like, that is like a really good starting point. Even if you don't get to the repertoire part of, before this gig, I have this many rehearsals, plus an extended rehearsal, or plus a camp, or whatever it is. Because that's really going to help you work out what repertoire is going to sit here, as well as knowing who is it for. So is it for, say, the students and the whole school at the Anzac Assembly? Obviously going to be different music than playing at the school fete. And you have to have 20 minutes of music, right? There's like a completely different ball game. Good to know up front. And let's say that this is term 2. Well, actually, that's going to be in term 2. I don't know. Let's say this is term 2, but it's, I don't know, May 24. That's your mid-year concert. And then you go, oh, actually, after the Anzac Assembly, I've only got 3 rehearsals. That's good to know, because you might want a double duty, Destined to Fly, so that you also play that at the mid-year concert. And you might decide, oh, actually, New Anzacs is an awesome piece, and I can play that in the mid-year concert as well. And then the kids will get 2 performances at it, which is going to be really helpful for, again, I think it was George mentioning about the kids haven't had performance experience, and they haven't had many goes at that, just the anxiety of performing and the pressure of performing. So doubling some stuff up could be really helpful as well. So you will get access to those. The next thing we're going to do is fly through some concepts that you can apply when you're looking at that music. And you don't need to write anything down because, again, you're going to get a PDF little checklist with all this stuff on it. But just so that we kind of talked it through. And please feel free to interrupt me because I'm just on a roll and enjoying sharing. So, but please just unmute and jump in. We already got to this. I made the slide 10 minutes before we started, but you already got to all of that ourselves. We want them to have a good time and we want retention. So it's got to be achievable. So if in doubt, can they play it? Can they play it easily? That's a good start. So when we're programming our music, I think it's really good for us to ask these two big questions of who is it for and what is it for? And who is it for is obviously for our ensemble, but it's also for the occasion, like we talked about the assembly versus the school fete versus whatever. It's also for the audience, and it's also for us. Those are the sort of four key players. And we have to work out if it's appropriate for any of those, all of those groups. And we also have to work out, probably even before that, do we think it's a good piece of music? Because if it's not, then it doesn't matter if it's appropriate. Or, you know, you might go something that's not the best piece of music you've ever seen, but if it's super appropriate, then you might go, I'm willing to just bend on that a little bit for this occasion. And then the what is it for is really about making sure that our students get exposed to a wide variety of things, because this is their experience of ensemble music. And, you know, I think that's part of our pedagogical responsibility to make sure that they are exposed to lots of different types of music within what is possible within your ensemble. But I think we've all probably expanded that during online learning as well. So again, you'll all get all this, so don't get too freaked out by all the dots. But for our group, is the work age appropriate? Can they meet the expressive demands of the piece? Can they meet the technical demands? And this is mostly what we've been talking about. Do you have the instruments, voices, and soloists that you need? Because if you don't, that's going to make it annoying for everyone. Do you have the physical resources needed? So that could be as simple as, you know, don't buy a piece that's got a giant double bass soli for your string orchestra if you don't have any double basses, right? Or, you know, don't pick a piece that needs 20 percussionists and you've got 2, because they're not octopuses. They're going to be very sad. And they won't have a good time because you can't realize the piece of music in the way that it's supposed to be. Is it affordable? For the occasion, is the piece going to work in the venue? And I reckon we're probably all going to have to do some outdoor gigs. So that's a good thing to think about. What equipment is available at your outdoor gig, for example? Does the music suit the type of event? And does the length of piece suit the performance? And again, I think we're probably all going to have to err on the side of shorter pieces just to make it easier for us to get through the rehearsals. For the audience. Now, admittedly, this is probably going to be low down the tree right now, where we're just trying to get the kids back on deck, but it's worth thinking about. Is the audience musically knowledgeable? What are they expecting? Do we want to educate the audience? How will it be interesting or relevant to them? How will they connect with the piece? And how will the audience experience the piece within the whole program? If you're, say, part of a whole school concert or a speech night, or whether it's just us and we're playing 3 pieces at a festival, for example. For you, we need as little stress as possible right now. So, can you meet the technical demands of the piece? Can you meet the musical demands of the piece? Can you teach the concepts in the piece? Do you have the tools to rehearse the piece? Do you have time to learn what you need to do to teach the piece confidently? And will you enjoy investing time learning and conducting the piece? So another thing to keep in mind is maybe for us, we are looking at stuff we've done in the past that the kids haven't done in the past, but we have. So maybe it's like right now you're teaching, I don't know, the second or third year choir or band or whatever it is, but at your previous job you taught the beginners. Go back to that stuff, for example. And if you're teaching beginners and it's the first time, well, at least at the start of next year, you've got a clean slate. So that's actually a massive advantage. You kind of know that you're going in with nothing. I'm going to whiz through these because you can look at them. But looking at the piece of music itself and asking, is it decent? How does the music balance meeting or defying your expectations? Or is it just like, I know what's going to happen and that's really boring? Does it have a kind of pleasing form or shape? Doesn't mean you can say it's an AMEB rondo form. No. And doesn't mean you need to do some kind of analysis of it, but like, does it make sense? Or is it a piece that doesn't go anywhere or a piece that has too many ideas? We've all experienced music on both those sides of the spectrum. Is there variation? Now, obviously, if you've got beginners, that's a different story. But as it's going on, you don't want a piece where you're 3 awesome kids that turned up to all your online rehearsals play euphonium and they only get to play 3 notes in the piece. So just getting specific of, is the piece well orchestrated and does it have a consistent sense of style? Already touched on development. Do the ideas develop? Do the parts work and make sense for the instruments? Does it have something to say? Is it musically interesting and engaging? And I think that if you take anything from this list of, is it a good piece of music, will it be interesting to conduct and rehearse for you? And will it be interesting and engaging for the players? And also the audience, but right now we're just probably focusing on the kids and us. And that's okay. So if you've looked through your kind of skills that you want to develop with your ensemble, naturally you're probably going to come up with a pretty balanced program because you've got a whole lot of different things you want the kids to learn, like playing different styles, playing some shorter, some longer pieces, playing pieces in different tempi. And we know slow pieces are hard for everyone, and that's probably going to be the hardest thing coming back in person. So planning ahead that's going to sound really bad the first time you play a slow piece. Luke, I think it was, talked earlier about a balance of easy and challenging. And we talked about that big spread of challenges just to help everyone. Different keys, if that's something that your ensemble is up to. But it's so easy in Stringland to play an entire year and your kids only play in D major, G major and B minor, even if they're in like the 3rd or 4th or 5th year of their playing. And it's the same, we know, with band and B flat major. So just that's a good one to just keep in the back of your mind. Different forms, different historical periods. Do the composers represent the people that are in your group? Have you got female composers? Have you got composers that are not from America? Is probably the question for us to ask. We've got lots of band and jazz people here. Different dynamics and expressing a bunch of different emotions. So that's a very quick rundown on those kind of nuts and bolts, but those are the things that you can just read on a piece of paper. I think the most important thing for us to take away is really being clear about where we are and where we want to go, and giving everyone some leeway about what that's going to be like. And as we've all learned how to do in the last 2 years, being flexible and having a lot of options, a lot of backup options. So if you've picked your 10 pieces in your folder and the easiest one doesn't work, just having in the back of your mind, all right, I got a few others I can pull out next week that are even easier. Or maybe it's the other way around. Probably not, but you never know. So the way that you can jump and get all of those downloads, and there's a lot, as well as some lists of where and how to look for repertoire for all different ensemble types, is if you go to my website, which is conductingartistry.com/learn, and you'll see that in the list of courses, there's a free repertoire selection course. And that's got all of the different templates, including editable versions. So if you're a Mac person, there's Pages and Numbers versions. And if you're a PC person, there's Word and Excel. And I do have somewhere a specific link that will actually take you straight to that thing, which I can put in the chat. There you go. If you're too lazy to write down the URL, you can just click on that thing in the chat. I say take the easiest option right now. That's what we all need to do. And I'm more than happy to, if you go and look at those resources or you find something missing, I think it's all there, but please send me an email. My email is contact@conducting, if I can spell and talk at the same time. Or if you've got any questions, or you're like, help me with this, or I need a such and such grade 2 jazz band piece, I probably can't help you with that, but I'll send you the kit. Yeah, if you need anything, I'm more than happy to answer questions. Oh, and if you want to go ultra deep and ultra geeky on all of this stuff, I actually made a 7-part podcast series, which is all about choosing repertoire. So you can on your walk that doesn't have to be socially distanced, well, still socially distanced, but it doesn't have to be by yourself really anymore. But if you are walking by yourself, you can go and listen to that, and all of the resources kind of tie in with that as well. Has anyone got any questions now that I've just talked at you for a long time, which is very bad teaching?
What's the podcast called?
Oh, so if you just look up Conducting Artistry, and you can also access it on the website by going to, hang on, conductingartistry.com/listen, and it's on Apple Podcasts, Overcast, wherever you get your podcast should be there.
Cool, great.
Any other questions? We have 2 minutes left.